All right, we're good. Anyways, first thing in order, Merry Christmas to you, buddy.
And to you.
Yeah, good to see you, buddy. Hope all's well. Even if it isn't, you're going to say it is, right?
It always is. Every day is Christmas.
Yeah, man. That's why you're on this show. So, let's jump right at it and let our audience know what's going on. This is Discovery. I'm your host, David Irwin. I'm with my friend Chris Laurie of St. Clair Beach. I will say this: we recorded this earlier, and due to David's malfeasance, he didn't record it. So hopefully today we're doing that. You get the benefit of hearing Chris today. So I assure you that Chris will deliver some high impact insight and inspiration and to fuel your discovery. And like everything in life, it comes at a little bit of a price for admission. For our guests, it comes in a form of candidacy and being raw, which Chris is, straight up, and perhaps more importantly, into our own lives as our guests share and inspire. So let me just do a little bit of a bio for you. Chris, a four-time Olympic champion, won over 20 or Olympian. I shouldn't say Olympic champion, but maybe that's what I want to believe. But you are, brother. You're a champion. You won over 21 World Cup titles. Was a 1990 overall World Cup bobsled four-man bobsled team leader. Co-authored a book. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but with his brother Ken, called Fiercely Driven. And by the way, is that still being produced so our audience could jump on it?
I think the book is still available through Amazon and whatnot.
That's nice. It's a great read, everybody. Fantastic read. And Chris is a total stack man, no question about it. He comes from an incredible athletic background, and maybe more importantly, and I know he would appreciate me saying this because it's true, a kind and faith-based family that always helped others, no question about it. So, welcome, Chris.
Uh, Great to be here. Always a
That's
pleasure to see you.
that's right. Likewise, man. And there's a lot to unpack from your long sports and personal journey to this point. So let's start with something difficult, and that was your accident in 1987 in Cervini. Maybe jump into the Olympics of '88, and then come back to Cervini. How you set the track record and won the four-man bobsled overall World Cup championship. So that's it. Stage is yours, bud.
All right. Well, I got into bobsledding through track and field. I was competing on the national team in decathlon, um, I was just one of those guys who was not necessarily one who was in the top rank in the world, and you had to ask yourself some hard questions. And it's basically I just didn't think that I could compete with the top guys, so we were more or less next level down. So they recruited a bunch of us to go bobsledding because they had the 1988 games coming up, and so the entire bobsled team was all track guys who couldn't make it to the top. But anyway, so yeah, I just got started in bobsledding, and it was a tough process to get on the team and get that thing rolling. And then my third season in, I had this accident in Cervinia. Difficult track. Track's now closed because there were just too many career-ending accidents, and made a driving mistake. Sled went over, and I hit my head on the wall, so I was knocked unconscious, and the sled continued to barrel roll down the track, and as a result, my face was completely torn wide open. Um, it was completely ripped all the way down from here. This whole side of my face was torn off. A broken nose, broken clavicle, a couple broken ribs, contusion on my legs, skin grafting up my arms. And that was 1 year prior to my first Olympic Games. So, the team was perfectly willing to want to replace anyone who they didn't think was going to do the job. But I was fortunate to come back the following year and make the team, and had another crash, refractured my clavicle in that Olympic season. And then we went out and won the Olympic trials uh, just prior to the games. And there you have it. That was my kind of brief synopsis of my journey to my first Olympic Games anyway.
So let me back you up a bit. Let's walk this back. How did you galvanize your vision for such a leap, Chris? If I could just say that general question. I know it's a broad question, but like,
Well, I think that as a kid, I played a lot of sports and I love sports, and I felt I had the mental framework for it and the ability to, excel in certain areas. And I'd committed to decathlon and the scholarship in the States and the whole bit, and just didn't think that was going to take me where I needed to go. And then this opportunity with bobsleigh came up. But I think that to answer the question, I think it's more a case of um, this is something that I excel in terms of sport, and my body at some point is going to expire. So I have to try to take advantage of it now while I have the opportunity, because the experiences that I'm going to gain during this opportune time are going to be far greater, and I'm not going to be able to go back to it. And so went into bobsledding, and just one thing led to another. And after we won the world championship, it became a business. So a combination of really, using your athletic skills as well as business. So, the vision just kind of starts to perpetuate itself until it's the right time to stop.
so let me stop you on the business. I read the book. Could we say I'm going to throw some controversy in and get you real visceral on this about, does it turn political?
I think as soon as you move, even high school sport, but as soon as you move beyond high school sport, there's no way to avoid um, complications that arise um, from unique interpersonal dynamics. Every athlete needs, athlete or otherwise, needs that person who believes in them, needs that person who's going to help them to optimize their skill set. They need that person who is going to support them, people, um, uh, because there are countless people in all walks of life that have the same level of potential, same skill set as those who are winning the medals or earning the money or achieving business success, but they perhaps have just lacked that one tool, that one person, that one area of support to help them to get there. This is why I'm disenchanted by individuals who think that their money is their power, because a lot of some people went through the hardcore process to achieve success that brings financial return, because it's obviously not always measured by that. But
Certainly.
some of them didn't do anything to deserve it, or they even, were crooked in the path that they took to acquire what they have. So it's, um, anyway, that's just, I think what I'm saying is you just need that
Yeah.
that support, and I always use a common day example would be Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow was recruited by Ohio State. He was sitting the bench. He was number 3, wasn't going to get a chance to play. He had good relationships with his coaches. They allowed him at the time, to transfer to LSU, became the starting quarterback, won the NCAA championship, first round draft pick, Heisman Trophy winner, superstar in the NFL, huge contract, all because that one move. And he had, there are 1,000 Joe Burrows sitting on the sidelines that never see the opportunity, whether it's business, sport, whatever your passion might be.
Yeah. I heard a commentator along those lines say that on TED Talks or something, talking about 4 or 5 of the key ingredients, for building a measurable entity that drives revenue. And it was obviously capital, financial capital, human capital, great concept, distribution, and something like timing. He said you can have all the other 4 coordinates in place. So great idea. wanted by the public, but not then. So that's a timing issue. Capital, great minds around it, passion, drive, and it doesn't work. So a lot of those stories, you know, the financial graveyard or the business graveyard is littered with it, and just the timing's off. The other
Yeah.
thing is, you know, I was thinking the other day about price versus cost, and there's examples in business that everybody pays the same price for admission because there's a bar of admission, but not the same cost based
Mhm.
on circumstances.
Mhm. Mhm.
So the cost that different individuals to do something is not the same. So Olympic trials, you have timelines and everything like that, but there's a different cost of entry, which is a different equation, and that's life, right? That gets in the way, be it
Yeah,
political.
we saw this on the bobsled team where when I started, we had to create something from virtually nothing. And an influx of funds came in ahead of the 88 games, but so that capital only gave us the opportunity to build a legacy formula. But you still had to put in the hard work to build it. So then we go on to build this legacy formula, and after our success, we were consistently, among the top three, top five in World Cup finishes. And then as we went down the road, we created a platform for new athletes to walk in and be able to, succeed without having to put in the foundational effort. Yet they had the foundation, and so this has gone, full cycle. And really, when that was realized was so that started in preparation for the 88 games, but when sliding sports won all the medals was in 2010 Olympic Games. So it took that long for it to really reach its peak. It's in a downward cycle now, but that's those coming in later had to put in like less of an effort in one sense.
Exactly. Hey, if you're wondering what I was scrambling with, my sled tipped over. The power was dying on the computer, so that was that was not planned. Anyways, sorry guys, but I heard what you said. Hey, Chris. So okay, let me do the cliche: highest, lowest moment in your life career. So let's just start with what about your lowest point of your career? Would it have been the accident, or is that just too simple to say that?
I mean, there were so many that it's hard to count, really. I think the lowest point is in any time that you're in a situation, and I will say that this was many, many times in my sport career, uh, is when you feel you are prepared for an opportunity or to really perform at a certain level, but there are things beyond your control that stand in your way, right? So you become frustrated, and it's just an extremely, extremely emotionally taxing situation to be in. And everybody goes through this, whether they're aware of it or not. The magnitude of your frustration comes from the difference between what you think you can do and what you are able to do based on what's within your control. This is why I say you need that person, that situation that creates the avenue for you. Every fourth stringer thinks they should be on the third string. Every third stringer thinks they should be on the second string. Everyone playing in the minors think they should have their shot at the majors. So I had a lot of those. And I would say that the high point was there were a lot of situations where we came through critically in races. But I would say that the high point comes from the long-term commitment that brought the team from nothing to consistent winners. And to me, that would be the high point when you reflect on it all, because when you reflect on things of this nature, what gives you the feelings of fulfillment are these things that are kind of like really because internalized through a long enduring process, that feeling, will stay with you, right? As opposed to one single event, because single event pleasure as a result of a single event is just totally transient, right? And so it's hard to say, like, okay, at that moment I was joyful, but you want the stuff that's deep inside you to really, drive what you reflect on as being fulfilling.
Yeah, from let's say the optics from the viewing audience side, the fans, the avid sport fan or people watching it, they'll see a hoisting the cup up or whatever the medal, and remember that moment. But it is fleeting. The other long road that's quiet and dark, where you're in a dark spot building everything out. They don't have the value of seeing that, but you as a team do, or as an individual athlete. And it's that stuff that galvanizes who you are, and my no question about it. But if you show that reel at that one moment of the victory, they'll say that's everything. And I would agree, it's certainly not at this stage in my life. It's that
Yeah.
long journey and people that know you and what you've gone through, and then team members when you get together and you say, remember that, and then it conjures up all the feelings leading to that. And nobody knows the headwinds, those challenges, and that's rich stuff. That's very visceral material, no question about it.
Well, my like every athlete, we're just going to use athletes in this case, and you can just apply it to whatever it is your area of interest. But every athlete has a story, and they're all interesting. They only typically decide to tell the stories of the winners and or the extreme losers, right? But everyone in between also has a story,
True.
And there are some fascinating details behind a lot of these stories. So, but the media decides that they decide that it's measurable, but it's not. So, but I will say that my dad, who was head of the engine division at Ford Motor Company worldwide, he used to prefer to hire individuals that have been through the process, who have been with the company a long time. They started at the bottom, they worked their way up, they showed high level competencies, and he would hire that person over an MBA any day, because the MBA thinks that they should skip the foundation phase and the process phase and jump right into a position. I mean, I'm not labeling MBAs in this
Understood.
carte blanche, but I'm just saying that this is the type of person profile that he would, have one over the other. And that's, because going through that process is critical to the development of your character. And you'll be able to relate to anything else that comes your way, as it relates to what you've experienced.
You alluded to, you didn't use the word anchor, but that go-to person in those dark times or whatever, or you need that leveling force. Was that your dad? Or was it a number of people, just to be fair in saying it that way?
Well, no, my dad let us be, my dad did not, interfere or really get involved in our pursuits at all. He supported us. He didn't resist us wanting to try something. But you need somebody in the system. Like, you need that coach who
Who
pulls
was
you.
that though? Can you say?
I don't even know, because I felt like I was always fighting from behind.
What does that mean?
Well, let's just say that when I started the sport, let's say the average bobsledder's for a driver, let's say you're 210 pounds and I was weighing 180, my strength numbers were still the same. But the coaches would gravitate toward a certain profile of athlete, and they would say, this is our guy. So then you have to fight against what they believe is their guy. And every sports team has this. And then the guy sitting on the sidelines is like, what about me? Let me show you my stuff, and I'll change how you see not only this situation, but perhaps see the world. And so I felt like I was always in that situation where, you know, and I had a critical moment with a coach where this was a coach who was, I felt, putting me in that box, sat him down, and he was a white knuckled military guy from the UK. And I said, look, here's how I felt, the way you dealt with me. Here's how I feel a leader should deal with a situation like this. Here's how, and so on and so on, went down the list. And after that, he had a complete different level of respect for me. And he kind of more or less moved into my camp. And and I found that to be helpful.
Nice. What about okay, let's shift a little bit, but what about some of the things you would have undone or redone differently if you had a mulligan? Anything?
I felt that I was a bit soft as a leader.
You were off or soft?
Soft.
Okay.
Felt like I was a little too soft as a leader, and probably could have demanded more of my guys. Probably could have put a little more pressure on them in terms of, your job is only this safe. So because there's a fine line between loyalty and prudent business. At the end of the day, you have to perform. And I was, I was very loyal in a lot of ways, where I felt that, okay, I'll stay with you through this injury, or I'll stay with you through this weaker phase. And, bobsledding is such a thorny sport in terms of the personal interdynamics, one team to the next, coaches and everything else. It gets very, complex. But so I just felt that there were situations where I let things go, and I probably should have stepped in and taken some action.
So I kind of know some of those dynamics from the book. I encourage our listeners to grab the book and look at it because it was unpacked somewhat there. But let me ask you again then, if you weren't kind of how you were knit together as an individual, and you would have went to not your default but a different operating style and been not autocratic, but you're there to win medals, let's say, then you felt that would have been helpful if you would have just cracked the whip and said, look, this isn't working. We have this end result. I love you, I care about you, but we can't do it. And you didn't do that. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah, to some extent. Yeah, it's a whole separate several hours of webinar to give the full.
Unpack it. Yeah. But measured by that moment, the you have what we had talked about before. Let's say that camaraderie, or you have that credit or medal associated with who you are, with how you handled that lasts forever. The other one is fleeting. Not to say I'm not driven to win, and that's your mandate. But it might not have been any different anyways when I think about it. Even if you approached it differently, your horses will say might not have responded what you've been given. It might not have worked out anyways. But one would never know. You wouldn't know.
Yeah, just like I'm a believer in you if you want to expand, who you are and what you're capable of, you have to take your brain to where it's never gone before. And you have to structure a scenario, a process, and specific tasks that are going to take your brain or your body to where you've never gone before. Just like in pursuing your sport or business, you have to test and move in a direction to see whether or not this is going to benefit your performance in whatever it is, whatever it is that you do. And so, then in our situation, the challenge becomes, what are the risks in giving up this to try this? And another challenge that I think in sport is that coaches are a bit of a problem in that the coach wants to win, and they want to win today, and they are willing to do whatever it is they need to do to win today at the expense of tomorrow and the long run. So they value their image on such a short-term view, and whatever, and perhaps their paycheck is connected to it to such an extent that it compromises long-term performance. So there are a lot of coaches that sacrifice tomorrow for the benefit of today, whether it's who you're putting in the game, how you're executing a specific game. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to watch. And it's amazing to watch coaches that have the long game in mind, and programs and teams and businesses that have the long game in mind.
That's kind of what you're saying seems to me that's either innate within them, who they are as individuals, or like you said, maybe
It's human nature.
they need that immediate dopamine hit. It's no different a playground, a business room, wherever.
So one of the costs is that you never explore to see what you could have done. And because you were looking for that performance today, those numbers today, whether you're a business and you've got to show certain numbers because your business is going up for sale, or, because you own stock in the business, whatever the scenario might be, it's the same human behavior reflected and playing out and manifesting in different ways. It's the fractal nature. So fractal patterns are geometric. Fractal is patterns of self-similarity at an infinite scale, but no two ever look the same. But it's the same at the core, but they never look exactly the same. So, and you see it because I'm in the financial markets, and we see it playing out day after day in the financial markets, but it's everywhere.
Interesting. So, going to say something here. You can respond to it. And then maybe we'll do, since we're kind of at the midway point, maybe even further, 60% in of our timeline, we'll shift over to your new interests, as it were. But what's unquestionable about you, if for those that don't know you, is that notoriety, accomplishment has never moved your needle. At least I see it. Maybe you keep your dorsal fin hidden, but I don't think so. So I don't think it's really affected you, and I want you to speak to that about yourself.
I don't know who wants to be famous in this day and age.
Everybody. Hey, what's so interesting? Yeah.
It seems like a dangerous proposition to me.
Well, it is. you get to be an extra in everybody else's movie, as I tell some people that are close to me, rather than the star in your own. But oh, really, that's the way I've always known you, and that's a super cool narrative of. Hey, you know what I want you to do? Just do this really quickly to wrap up this segment about the sports. Is um, do you remember your times in podium standing? We'll call it, since we'll use a measurement. You won the World Cup in '90. Total points. You got to win a lot of races. You got to be consistent, which is along the theme you're talking about. But the Olympic appearances, there were four. What did that look like, real quickly? Not the experience himself, but positions, placings, times.
Well, if you just want to go back to one of the coolest periods in my career was, we had the accident in Trevina, and it should have been career ending, and I never really should have gone anywhere in the sport. But when we won the overall World Cup in 1990, the backstory on that is, in our second to last race of the season, we had to go back and face Trevina. So we were in a position to win the overall World Cup, but we had to win. There were two races remaining. We had to win one and finish no worse than second in the other. The second to last race was in Trevina. And typically the Germans were beating us by a few hundredths of a second on the start. But when you go to a track that's dangerous, there's this inhibition in your mind, and it plays out in your physical performance. And pushers you can tend to hold back a little bit because you're afraid of the consequences. It's not like you want to run full speed into a ball of fire. So, but in that race, my team was a few hundredths of a second faster than the Germans at the start, which meant that they were not scared, and the Germans perhaps were scared of the track and the consequences of a crash. And we ended up setting the track record in that race, which set us up to win the overall World Cup. Beautiful. And so that to me was a critical time. I mean, not only my career, but for the program as a whole. That really created a massive shift in our performance base.
Sweet. Okay, we got about 6 minutes. Okay, so I know your sport called for, your ability to endure extreme G forces. So this directional change in the discussion, we're going to jump right over to, it should be an easy one for a guy like you, but take us into about a 180-degree turn and discuss some of the work you've done with respect to, the war against sex trafficking rings that you were involved with, not in the rings, but in terms of countering forces. And I want to set the stage perhaps for a future, richer, deeper discussion on it. But can you give us some insights into that work, which became, post-sport long after, and how you got into it? But just take it away, Chris.
So in 2010, 2011, so I've been traveling back and forth to Singapore from about 2006 with my financial business. And in 2011, I moved there to Singapore permanently, although I came back and forth a lot because my dad was, slowing down and whatnot. But I was Singapore based. And while I was Singapore based, I had a scenario where a friend of mine who I had managed some capital for said, hey, and this person had, considerable wealth. And they said, I just don't know what to do with my life, this and that. And so I said, well, there's a church down the street over here. Why don't you go ask God what to do with your life? Because he's the only one who can really answer it and where you can find fulfillment. And then so she went to church. There was a guest speaker. Guest speaker was from a guy who works in Thailand and manages a bunch of orphanages in Thailand. So she comes out and she says, hey, I'm going to Thailand and we're going to go check out these orphanages and you're coming with me. So we went to Thailand and so we got some exposure to a lot of the situations that these young girls come from. And so that got put on my heart. And then after some time, I started to support an organization called Destiny Rescue, and who penetrate sex trafficking networks. They infiltrate them, and then they coordinate efforts with the police to not only take down the trafficking network, but also rescue the girls out and rehabilitate the girls. So, a few years of supporting them, then I went out on the streets with them. And before I knew it, I was out on the streets every day, every night, all night, for, weeks on end. And so I did that for about 4 years. I was back and forth between mainly from Singapore and to mainly worked out of Manila. And then sometimes we do one-off ops, or I would be called for one-off ops, called a burn agent for certain tasks in Thailand and Cambodia. But I worked mainly out of with the Manila group, and we saw some horrific things. But we took down a lot of networks, and you have networks that they're compounds. You have networks that are street networks that are through the bars and brothels. So we did pretty well all of it, and it was pretty intense. You never knew. You got in the van, and you never knew if it was a one-way trip. You just never knew what was going to go down, and it was always some element of surprise where you had to work. It's not unlike being on a team playing with a group of guys, where it's like you got to figure out and read the body language of what's going on and what your information that your teammates have that you need to kind of read into, and how to respond to situations. So it was extremely intense.
Yeah. Not far removed in terms of that from your previous life, but that's great. Hey, Chris, 3 golden nuggets, quickly, just on, and I don't like the word advice, but insights or whatever on business, personal development, family, that you'd have for our listening audience.
Well, I think that just to summarize, our purpose in life really is to every individual has a very unique gift that they excel at, and your unique gifts are used to help other people, because the investment that you make in other people is what's going to give you fulfillment over the long term, not investing in things. So using your unique gift to enhance the life of another person. Also, if you are looking at doing something, it's important that you engage in a very structured journey. The only way that you're going to learn things from it and internalize your experiences is if it's structured. The last thing that I would say is that your greatest secret weapon in life is your understanding of yourself. And don't lie to yourself, because the lies that you say to others are shallow in comparison to the lies you're telling yourself. So your greatest secret weapon is going to be your understanding of yourself, because the more you understand yourself, the greater tool that you are going to be in achieving what you want to achieve.
Toughest conversation you'll ever have is with yourself. It's well put, Chris.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, maybe we can expand on that a little bit more on another one in the future, but I want to thank you for being here, being so candid as you always are. And, your humility and skill sets come screaming through equally. So appreciate it, Chris. Just want to say to everybody today, like Chris, remember, be solid and be after you. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.
All right, man.
See you, man. Take care.
Bye-bye.